Matthew 5, verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The eighth beatitude brings us to a turning point in Yeshua's teaching. Up to now, the blessings have described inner qualities: poverty of spirit, meekness, mercy, purity of heart. But now the blessing comes not from who we are inside, but from how the world responds to us when we pursue righteousness. Yeshua says we are blessed not if, but when we are persecuted for righteousness' sake. That tells us something immediately. The pursuit of true righteousness will never be socially neutral. It will always provoke a reaction. Now, when we hear the word persecuted, we tend to think of violence, imprisonment, or martyrdom. And while that meaning certainly exists at the extreme end, it is not the primary sense of the Greek word dioko. The word has a wide range of meaning: to pursue, to press, to chase down, to harass. In modern terms, harassed, ridiculed, or made the target of hostility often captures the idea better. So we might reasonably hear Yeshua saying, open quote, "How blessed are those who are harassed because they pursue righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." Close quote. And that raises an important question. What righteousness is he talking about? Every Jew listening to Yeshua that day believed they were pursuing righteousness. Righteousness, in their understanding, was defined by behavior: keeping Torah, observing Sabbaths and feasts, praying, attending synagogue, following traditions, and living as a moral person. And not only that, but Judaism itself was divided into competing sects, each convinced they had the correct interpretation of righteousness. So if Yeshua had stopped with "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake," his audience would have naturally assumed he meant their version of righteous behavior. But he doesn't stop there. He finishes with a phrase that changes everything. Open quote, "For theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Close quote. With those words, righteousness is lifted off the earth and anchored in heaven. The source of righteousness is no longer human effort, religious performance, or rule-keeping. It is God himself. Human righteousness is real, but it is limited. It is built on discipline, devotion, and obedience. And God certainly expects righteous behavior from his people. But human righteousness cannot save us. It cannot join us to the kingdom of heaven. God's righteousness is something altogether different. It is part of his very nature. It flows from his will, his purposes, and his power to save and restore. And that righteousness cannot be achieved. It can only be received. It is given as a gift of grace through the Messiah, Yeshua of Nazareth. And here is where the cost comes in. In the first century, once Jewish men and women began trusting Yeshua as Messiah and Lord, harassment was inevitable. They were ridiculed, slandered, excluded, and targeted, often not by pagans, but by religious leadership itself. Yeshua explicitly warned that synagogue authorities would lead the way in mistreating his followers, and history shows that this harassment eventually escalated into imprisonment, violence, and death. But this beatitude is not only about the past. For many of us, especially in the Western world, being a believer once carried little social cost. Christianity was culturally accepted, even expected. But that world is fading quickly. Today, faith in the God of Israel and trust in Yeshua is increasingly treated as backward, intolerant, or even dangerous. Belief is tolerated only if it is silent, private, and invisible. So we adapt. We keep quiet. We compartmentalize our faith. We avoid conversations that might cost us comfort, reputation, or approval. And yet Yeshua says, "Blessed are those who pay that cost." From the pshat, the plain sense, he is telling his listeners and us that harassment for God's saving righteousness is not a sign of failure, but of belonging. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And from the remez, the hinted meaning, his words point forward to a time when persecution will no longer be limited to ridicule, but will become global, systemic, and deadly. Scripture tells us that a day is coming when faith in Messiah will be treated as hostility toward the world itself. So we must ask ourselves honestly, if we struggle to speak when the cost is mockery, what will we do when the cost is freedom, or livelihood, or life? The Beatitudes do not promise comfort. They promise citizenship. And Yeshua assures us that those who endure the cost of pursuing God's righteousness, whether through ridicule today or suffering tomorrow, already possess what the world can never give or take away. The kingdom of heaven is theirs.